Ladies and gentlemen, before we get started, here at Ivy Talks Podcast Network, we're doing a subscriber giveaway. We'll be doing a giveaway on the 1st and the 15th of every month for $50 for a random subscriber. All you have to do to enter is subscribe, comment on any video, and you'll be entered for a chance to win. And once you do it once, you're entered for life. And it's going to be on the 1st, 15th of every month. A random subscriber will be chosen to win $50. As you grow, that money will go up. So go ahead, subscribe, comment to enter. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the WNBA coverage. Coach Diesel couldn't be with us today, but she will regroup with us next week. So we're going to go straight into it. Standings, statistical leaders, and just some kind of news that's going on with just different players' performances and team things in the second half. So starting off standings in the East, New York Liberty still undefeated at 7-0. We'll get to a game they had, a historical game they had this past week. Atlanta Dreams looking really good. They're sitting at 2. Washington Mystics at 3. Indiana Fever at 4. Chicago Skies at 5. Connecticut Suns at 6. Connecticut Suns do get a win. As we talked about last week, they had not won a game yet. They get a win this past week. The Minnesota Lynx, they are number 1 as well in the West. Both New York Liberty and Minnesota Lynx are 7-0. Phoenix Mercury are at 2. Las Vegas Aces are at 3. Seattle Storm at 4. The Golden State Valkyries are at 5. LA Sparks at 6. Dallas Wings at 7. And again, Dallas Wings got their win because I believe they also didn't have a win last week. They got a win there. Go ahead. Had a game where they finished out. Now, statistical leaders, ports per game. Nafisa Collier at 26.3. Rebounds per game. Angel Reese at 12.3. Assists per game. Caitlin Clark at 9.3. Steals per game, Thornton 2.5 per game. At blocks per game, Angel Wilson 22.7 blocks per game. Field goal percentage, Aaliyah Boston at 65.2%. 3-point percentage, Hole at 57.1% from the 3. This is incredible. And free throw percentage, Samuelson at 100% from the free throw line. Minutes per game, Kelsey Plum at 36.6. Turnovers, Angel Reese at 3.8. Getting into some news to start off, New York Liberty had an absolutely diabolical game against, oh my gosh, who was it against? Against the Connecticut Suns. New York Liberty won 100-52, second largest margin in WNBA history. And I mean, it was just, everybody was getting everything they wanted. They're the big starters for Liberty: Natasha Cloud, Sabrina, Jacquel Jones, Phoebe Stewart. They all played basically 23 minutes or less because it was just so dominating. Everybody was getting what they pretty much wanted. And Connecticut, they did gut their team from last year, so they're basically in a rebuild stage. So I think this season is going to be a struggle season for them. Hopefully they figure it out here probably by the halfway point of the season. But I do think it's going to be a lot of growing pains for the Connecticut Suns. You can tell the chemistry is just not there, turning the ball over, basic passes, really good looks, open looks, but just either hesitating and making a mistake and turning it over, or just not hitting the shots that are good looks or good shots. So you can tell Connecticut's probably going to have a rough season this year, which is kind of, it's unfortunate because last year they started the season really, really well. They started the season better out than the Minnesota Lynx. I believe they went on like a 9-0, 10-0 run and finished second in their conference. But that's pretty much going to be that's pretty much what it's going to be like for the Connecticut Suns. We had players of the week in the Eastern Conference. We have Alicia Gray, 26.5 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game, 4 assists per game. And Angel Wilson at 27 points per game, 10 rebounds per game, 3.5 blocks per game in the Western Conference for the Las Vegas Aces. And the Phoenix Mercury overcome an 18-point deficit to beat the LA Sparks. And one thing I am noticing about LA Sparks, which I believe Coach Diaz and I talked about last week, is I think LA Sparks is one of those teams that they have the talent to potentially go on a run and end up moving up the ranks. But right now they're having problems finishing games. they're up 18, they're up 20, they're up 15, and they're losing games, or they'll be in the game, and then late third quarter, fourth quarter hits, it'll be a 1 or 2 point game, and next thing you know, they're down by 15. They're allowing teams to go on runs, and they'll go on runs earlier on, but they can't finish later off. So it'll be interesting to see how the chemistry, because it's pretty much for the most part the same team, but you add a superstar like a Kelsey Plum to the roster, who's top 5 in points per, and she's number 1 in minutes per game. She's also top 5 in points per game. I believe she's second in points per game behind Nafisa Collier. So you're adding a superstar, but it's just going to be chemistry and really, really hunkering down on the defense is what it really is. So, but I do think they can figure it out. They have the pieces. When you're watching the game, even if they had that game where they gave up 18 points, when you're watching a lot of these games, they're in it right there. It's just like a piece or two there, or like a play or two here or there, that's kind of leading to that slippery slope of the game just kind of falling apart. Another team that I'm really keeping my eye on, first, the Indiana Fever. I'm curious to see how they do without Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark had a hamstring injury or leg. It was either quad or hamstring. It was a leg injury. She's going to be out for a couple weeks. I'm interested to see how the Indiana Fever fares without Caitlin Clark. They did add, they added some players to their roster. I know they have Sophie Cunningham, and I believe, let me check that roster real quick. I believe, yes, they added DeWanna Bonner. I just want to make sure I got that correct before I said it. They added DeWanna Bonner, who, to me, she reminds me of a Kevin Durant style player, where she's linky, she's tall she's 6'4", but she's got a crazy wingspan. She's got the long arms. She's like a female Slim Reaper, or like Kevin Durant's basketball nickname. She reminds me a lot of that. ISO, she's gonna kill you. It's hard to contest her because with her long arms, almost every shot's an open shot unless you're just up on her. But you can't play her too aggressive because she's got a quick first step. She can get to her spots. You add a player like that with Caitlin Clark, and then you add a good 3-and-D type of player with Sophie Cunningham. I'm curious to see how this team does with Caitlin Clark out. I think this is a good opportunity for the Indiana Fever if they can figure out how to play well without Caitlin Clark and really get that chemistry with the new players, because it's going to be next person up. I think once Caitlin Clark comes back, I think Indiana Fever become that much better as a team. So I'm keeping my eye on Indiana Fever with that. The other team I'm interested in is the Golden State Valkyrie, simply because this is their first season as a team. So we haven't seen this team together. There's not like a core that we're used to seeing with the, in previous years you had your Kelsey Plums and Aja Wilson, also like your Chelsea Grays. You had your Donna Taurasi and your Brittany Griner. You had obviously the Sabrina Ioscu and the Stewie and the Jacqueline Jones. Like, we have these cores on different teams, but with this team, we don't know who the core is yet, right? And so I'm interested to see how this season plays out and where they fit, because right now they are 5th in the West. They're 2-4. Again, it's still early on the season. They're a game away from tying Seattle. They're 2 games away from being 3rd. So if they go on a little run here, they could end up being in that 2nd or 3rd spot in the next couple weeks. And so even though they're a brand new team, they're kind of sitting in a spot where I'm very interested to see how this team plays out moving forward into next year and the year after, where you after they have a year, now okay, these are our girls here. These are our athletes. These are our stars, whoever it is. These are our stars. Now you can build around that once you know who your stars are. So I'm curious to see how that goes, because this is my first time being this in-depth in sports, because I believe in football, I was alive, or I was there when the Supersonics switched to the Hornets, or whatever team that they switched to. I was there for that, but I wasn't into basketball at the time. Same with the Houston Oilers moving to Tennessee, or whatever. But this is my first time being like aware as an adult into that sports. I didn't get into sports for real until later, like high school, even college after that, for football and basketball. But this is my first time witnessing a new team being introduced into a league. So I'm curious to see how that process goes from a GM's perspective, and what are they seeing? How are they going to, what the moves they make in the draft next year, their free agency. Obviously, I'm thinking way ahead forward, but all of that is predicated right here, right now. And then last team that I'm very interested in seeing is the Washington Mystics, simply because Washington Mystics had one of the worst seasons last year. And already this early, again, it is very early. They're 2 games behind second. They're 2 games behind Atlanta Dream. Atlanta Dream's another team where they've really stepped up from last year. They were a kind of a middle-of-the-pack team, and now they're sitting second, 2 games behind Liberty. But the Washington Mystics were at the very bottom of the league last year. Now they're sitting third in the East, 2 games behind the second spot, 1 game above Indiana. So again, it's earlier on. The games behind and games up are going to be tight, but they're playing significantly well as a team. So I do think Washington Mystics will be one of those teams that they're third right now in the East. I think they'll finish more or less third or fourth. So that's the team I'm keeping my eye on for the season to see how they play in terms, like down the road, where they're at. But it's been a lot of games being played. I'm actually getting ready to turn on and watch some games tonight. Just real quick, since I have it up, the Washington Mystics are actually playing the Indiana Fever right now. Washington Mystics are up 34-30 with 1:52 left in the second quarter. And then tonight, Central Standard Time, I'm in Central Standard Time, Mercury plays against the Lynx, which Lynx are a 12.5-point favorite there. And Seattle Storm plays Dallas at 8:30. Seattle's a 10.5-point favorite in that. And then Seattle Storm, Skylar Diggins-Smith is balling this year. I think she'll make the All-Star team pretty much, no questions. So it's cool to see all these stars for each team's kind of be that star and consistently like be that star. And so yeah, just I'm a fan of Skylar Diggins-Smith. So I just wanted to shout her out since it reminded me of the Seattle Storm game. And then obviously, real quick, this is just looking at these games that are being played. It's reminding me of players with Paige Buckets. I call her Paige Buckets, Paige Beckers. Paige Buckets having a solid rookie season. Individually, as a team, they're still figuring it out. So I do think this is going to be one kind of like Connecticut. I do think the Dallas Wings will. I don't think Connecticut Suns will figure it out by the end of the season. I do think Dallas will figure it out. I don't think that they're going to make like a crazy move and end up top of the conference. I don't think that, but I do think from a team perspective, from a young core perspective, I think they'll figure it out. And I think 2 or 3 years from now, they will be a very competitive team. But Paige Buckets has been playing really well. 14.7 points per game, 6.7 assists per game, 4.7 rebounds per game. She's shooting 33% from the 3, 80% free throw, 43.7% from the field goal range. True shooting over 53%. So true shooting, she's making basically over half of the shots she puts up. And she's averaging 2 steals per game and a block. So those 2 steals per game, I think, are going to pay dividends for her as, like they say, defense turns into offense. I think this is going to be a big part of her game if she keeps that up. And yeah, Paige Beckers. So get ready to turn those games on. But again, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys for watching. This has been another episode of the WNBA Covers. We'll catch you guys next time.